Steven Spielberg, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, filmmakers in the entire world. Thanks to the magic of updates in technology, he went from creating a masterpiece in storytelling and suspense with god-awful special effects that look about as real as baby geniuses, to creating, in my opinion, the greatest special effects I have ever seen in any movie ever, bar none.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I'll actually go that far. Best CGI, best animatronics, best practical effects. I've not seen a movie since this, or even before it, that comes anywhere close. Which is actually quite astonishing when you really think about it. How come no movie has done better effects than a film in 1993?
This is impossible.
Look, it's insane that this isn't real. In fact, this kind of was. The roof of the car wasn't actually supposed to break, so their reactions are genuine, but my point is, combining CGI with animatronics is clearly the way to go. And with the humans in the same frame like this, it's insane, it's intense. We're in the cars with the characters, so we're really feeling their fear with them, which is a genius move from Spielberg, and there's no music either. It's absolute perfection. The pacing, the suspense, the acting, the editing. This is one of the start to finish, all around greatest scenes I have ever seen in my entire life. This movie is scary as hell with the ways they build the suspense, but I will admit, this shot looks completely fake. That's the only one that looks fake. Oh, and this cow looks faker than the dinosaurs.
That makes the investors very, very anxious.
The T-Rex model would also malfunction a lot in the rain and sometimes move on its own and come to life, scaring the hell out of everyone on set. It weighed 12,000 pounds, and if just its head moved and somebody was nearby, it felt like a bus driving past.
Yes. So that's why we're taking extreme precautions.
John Hammond, played by the late great Richard Attenborough, who ironically previously beat Steven Spielberg for a Best Director Academy Award in 1982,
He sends his apologies.
has created, with the help of his bioengineering company, a theme park called, well, you know the drill.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
An island in Costa Rica filled with cloned dinosaurs. Just go with it. But unfortunately, some of the staff become Happy Meals on legs, so Hammond seeks out a paleontologist called Alan Grant, played by Sam Neill, another called Ellie Sattler, played by Laura Dern, and a Jeff Goldblum, played by Jeff Goldblum,
Excellent.
to check out the park and make sure that it's safe. Hammond's grandchildren also join the ride, and it's explained that millions of years ago, around the same time Bruce Forsyth just finished college,
That was great.
mosquitoes would bite the dinosaurs and then get stuck in tree sap. Now the humans were capable of rescuing them and using the DNA within to clone the dinosaurs. Just go with it.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here.
The special effects are then shown off like a Game Boy in middle school in the 90s, as the evil chicken man from Toy Story 2 here is bribed to steal some dinosaur embryos and ends up sabotaging the entire park. This leads to Samuel L. Jackson's death, which is never nice, and a fight for ultimate survival until the lucky ones finally escape the island. Until the sequels, but we'll get onto them later.
I don't blame people for their mistakes.
The writer, Michael Crichton, originally thought up a screenplay about a graduate student who recreated a dinosaur, but after his fascination with the creatures continued, he ended up writing the novel of the same name, published on November the 20th, 1990. Even before it was out in the public, Spielberg learned of the book as early as October 1989 and claimed, "What really fascinated me was that Jurassic Park was a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday be brought back alongside modern mankind, going beyond a simple monster movie."
Oh, there it is.
Crichton straight away demanded $1.5 million for the film rights, in addition to a decent percentage of the gross success, refusing to negotiate. Richard Donner, Joe Dante, and even Tim Burton bid for the rights. Tim Burton, great! A gothic emo T-Rex. Played by Johnny Depp.
We were saving that!
And even James Cameron wanted to bid but ran out of time. Universal, however, had already acquired the rights in May 1990 specifically for Spielberg, who had just finished work on Hook. After seeing the film, Cameron admitted that he wasn't the right man for the job, as his version would have been much more violent. Cameron even said he would have cast Bill Paxton as Malcolm, Charlton Heston as Hammond, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Grant. They move in herds. They do move in herds. Spielberg, however, really wanted to make Schindler's List, and he was actually given the green light to do so, but only if he made Jurassic Park first. Spielberg himself claimed, "I was really just trying to make a good sequel to Jaws on land." That's true. There never was a good Jaws sequel.
Clever girl.
Initially, the director tried to get Bob Gurr on board to create the monsters, as he was responsible for the King Kong ride at Universal, but decided they would be too expensive and not convincing at all. Maybe he was brought back to make the fourth one, I don't know.
I remember.
He ended up bringing in Stan Winston, who was responsible for special effects on films such as Aliens, Friday the 13th Part 3, Edward Scissorhands, The Terminator 1, 2, and 3, Batman Returns, among many others. He also brought in Phil Tippett, most notably responsible for the Star Wars franchise, and Michael Lantieri, who would later go on to work on the Pirates of the Caribbean saga.
Ah!
Many effects from the book were dropped or included since this little Dilophosaurus bastard couldn't actually spit venom, and even facts about the dinosaurs themselves changed in order to improve the picture, most notably the T-Rex in real life not physically being able to ever run as fast as depicted due to its hollow bones. But who gives a shit? How awesome does this look?
How'd you do this?
It was also billed as the most accurate dinosaur depiction of all time, despite the fact in real life a Triceratops could actually fight a T-Rex, and the Brachiosaurus didn't actually chew its food.
I found a way.
Also, I'm sorry to burst people's childhoods. Nah, I'm not. But velociraptors weren't actually based on the dinosaur in question, the original creature being a lot smaller and even covered in feathers. This is what a real velociraptor looked like. Quite disappointing, isn't it? However, not long after the release of the movie, a similar creature called a Utahraptor was discovered, matching the movie's design but a lot bigger. The film literally created a dinosaur and then a real one was discovered.
Her name and we got it.
Also, just to ruin your childhood further, the sound of the raptors talking to each other is actually the sound of tortoises having sex. You're welcome. And it's called Jurassic Park, but only 2 from that era actually appear, the rest from the Cretaceous period.
Yeah, but I can pronounce Jurassic.
Even more impressive, these raptors for this sequence alone were played by men in suits, and you can't even tell. So all the other crap films that try to pull stuff like this off, but it ended up looking faker than Spawn, shame on you.
I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion. Something that was real.
The roars or general noises made from the dinosaurs were simply created by using the sounds of many other animals, such as baby elephants, penguins, swans, horses, hawks, rattlesnakes, monkeys, donkeys, tigers, alligators, whales, dogs, dolphins, among others. Despite having a great team working on the animatronics, Spielberg still wasn't happy with the end results until some animators suggested trying out some CGI, which was still relatively new back then. The director wasn't convinced enough to prove that it could work, and they quickly showed that it could.
Occasionally.
All these other movies, including the film's own sequels, just tend to rely on CGI alone. Here we have a movie that combines animatronics and CGI, and you have the most realistic looking effects ever created. This is exactly why CGI is necessary, yes, but only to a minimal degree, and practical effects are also essential.
You pick them because they look good.
When adapting the book, a lot was lost in the process. The novel was quite lengthy, so a ton of exposition was dropped, replaced with the cartoon scene to get it done quicker, and the gore was actually toned down a great deal as well. In the book, John Hammond was a ruthless businessman. This was changed to a kind and charming old guy. The kids in the book were originally the other way around in terms of age, and Grant even loved the kids immediately in the original story, which was changed so he can gradually grow to care for them. A concept Hollywood and most fans and critics have feared for a very long time, called character development.
There's fun in that.
One scene in particular from the book that was cut was where I'm not going to try to pronounce that, attacks a young child, but Spielberg found it too horrific. It was, however, used in Jurassic Park 2, because I guess that movie gave less shits.
People are dying.
William Hurt was offered the role of Alan Grant, but turned it down without even reading the script, and Harrison Ford was even given the chance, but turned it down, saying the part wasn't right for him. After seeing the film, he stood by his word, despite, by his own admission, never watching the entire movie all the way through, and Richard Dreyfuss was also considered for the part, as was Kurt Russell, who turned it down, demanding more money, and Dennis Quaid, Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, Dylan McDermott, Tom Sizemore, and Robin Williams also being considered. Sam Neill was cast just a few weeks before filming even began. He stated, "It all happened real quick. I hadn't read the book, knew nothing about it, hadn't heard anything about it, and in a matter of weeks I'm working with Spielberg."
Nobody cares.
Many actresses were considered for the role of Ellie Sattler, including Sandra Bullock, Gwyneth Paltrow, Julianne Moore, Jodie Foster, Sigourney Weaver, Michelle Pfeiffer, Ali Sheedy, Gina Davis, Daryl Hannah, Jennifer Grey, Kelly McGillis, Jamie Lee Curtis, Julia Roberts, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Jessica Parker, Bridget Fonda, Juliette Binoche, Nicole Kidman, Heather Graham, Lisa Rinna, Renee Zellweger, Kim Raver, Mariska Hargitay, Joan Cusack, Deborah Winger, Laura Linney, Helena Hunt, Robin Wright, Terry Hatcher, Elizabeth Hurley, and Sherilyn Fenn.
Think they'll have that on the tour?
Ian Bannon, Clint Eastwood, Marlon Brando, and John Pertwee were considered for the part of John Hammond, and even Sean Connery was offered the role. It was decided that Jeff Goldblum would be perfect for the role of Jeff Goldblum, despite Jim Carrey himself even auditioning. Allegedly, Carrey was terrific too, but I think pretty quickly we all loved the idea of Jeff.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Other actors considered for the role consisted of Michael Keaton, Johnny Depp, I knew it! Ted Danson, Steve Guttenberg, and Michael J. Fox. This movie had an incredible 25 months of pre-production before filming finally began on August the 24th, 1992 in Hawaii. On September 11th that year, they were swept by Hurricane Iniki, which disrupted a lot of shooting. We were also originally supposed to see Samuel L. Jackson's death, but the set was destroyed by the hurricane and it couldn't be shot. Some of the storm scenes were from the actual hurricane cocaine and they were kept in the final film.
It's a gift.
Shooting wrapped up just less than 2 weeks ahead of schedule on November 30th, 1992, and editor Michael Kahn got a rough cut together within just a matter of days, allowing Spielberg to finally start work on his beloved Schindler's List. While he did so, he often had teleconferences whilst on set for his Liam Neeson classic in Poland to monitor the work on the dinosaur flick, and the movie was finally finished on May the 28th, 1993. This was one of my favourite films growing up, and it really does still hold up to this day. Sure, it follows the cliche of the black dude dying first, literally in the first 3 minutes, and Alan does seem to have a fetish for traumatizing the hell out of small children, but I think it just adds on to his character and his disliking of kids, which benefits later on as he bonds with the others. Speaking of which, kids in a horror action film that can actually act? Is that allowed?
Relax. Try and enjoy yourself.
Ironically, the boy, played by Joseph Michello, previously auditioned for the role of Jack in Spielberg's Hook, but was considered too young. The girl, eventually played by Ariana Richards, was also considered for Anna Klumsky and Christina Ricci. When we first see the dinosaurs, it's such an enchanting moment, other than, Grant clearly having an orgasm over it. But you really do get engulfed in the magic that's taking place on your screen.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Sure, but can he turn himself into a fly? The technology also hasn't aged very well, but it does make me nostalgic for the 90s. Remember when you couldn't use your phone and the internet at the same time?
I really hate that man.
I do find it bizarre that they don't even lock the doors in their tour cars on a dinosaur island.
I told you how many times we needed locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors.
See? He's doing my job for me. It has very touching moments like this when the Triceratops just finished watching Jurassic Park 3 and immediately fell ill. It's really emotional.
Maybe it's the power trying to come back on.
You could argue that the adults are cowards for not going to rescue the kids against the T-Rex here, but come on, let's be honest. There's only one man who could actually do the dinosaur any kind of damage.
And his name is John C.
There's so many memorable scenes that we all still quote and recall to this day, and it's easy to see why it's always viewed as a classic and a masterpiece in filmmaking. Although this apparently inspired the talking whale scene from Finding Nemo, so fuck you, Spielberg. Is it actually possible for somebody to survive 10,000 volts of electricity, let alone a small child?
I happen to be a vegetarian.
And the one that everyone's pointed out. We can always hear the T-Rex coming, but at the end of the film it becomes a goddamn ninja or something and sneaks up to save the day. Just doesn't make much sense, but this shot looks amazing. Look at that! This ending was changed though because Spielberg didn't want to disappoint the fans and thus returned everyone's favourite dinosaur to save the day.
Thank you.
I also adore that the love story is kept subtle, another concept a lot of critics, fans and directors are alien to recently. It leaves it more mysterious and charming. In a clever use of marketing, the dinosaurs were barely shown in the trailers and the film was premiered on June the 9th, 1993 in Washington, D.C. 2 days later, it was released nationally to over 2,000 theatres. The movie was shown on television for the first time ever on May the 7th, 1995, in which over 68 million people tuned in to watch, and it was the highest rated theatrical film broadcast on TV since April 1987 with Trading Places. Jurassic Park was, at the time of release, the highest grossing movie ever made, earning $47 million just in its first weekend alone, crushing Batman Returns' record the year prior. After 1 week, the movie had grossed $81.7 million and to this day remains Spielberg's highest grossing picture of all time. The movie was very well received, understatement of the century, for the effects, musical score by John Williams, who I'm pretty sure could fart on a piano and still compose gold, and Spielberg's direction, but many criticised the script and details removed from the novel. Personally speaking, I can see some arguments about the character development. I mean, Hammond's granddaughter has one throwaway you blink you miss it line about being a computer hacker and then uses this skill later on. That's lazy just out of nowhere, but as for the lack of story, it works here because no one would realistically go into Jurassic Park caring for the characters. The dinosaurs were clearly the stars of the film, which Spielberg himself even admitted in regards to the T-Rex, so a massive story arc of the humans would have just fell flat. Don't get me wrong, I like these people and I want them to survive, but in a movie so heavy on special effects, it's clear that they were never going to be the vital part of the story, so it works. Jeff Goldblum plays this skeptic, smart-ass, I told you so character. Though a trope today, this set the trend for it, and Goldblum nails it perfectly. There's also a scene where he subtly flirts with Laura Dern's character, and after this movie was made, they ended up getting together in real life and even being engaged for 2 years. Power of the Goldblum. The film really set the boundaries for special effects. Filmmakers saw things like this as unfeasible or too expensive. Now, because of Spielberg, they seem doable. It was this film that led George Lucas to start work on the Star Wars prequels, although I'm sure a lot of people aren't too thrilled about that. and Stanley Kubrick to work on AI artificial intelligence, and even Peter Jackson to head towards his dream of making the Lord of the Rings trilogy and King Kong. The movie was such a huge impact, the study of paleontology suddenly had a record increase in students. Regardless, if you've not seen these films, just stick to the first two.